have nothing to do with the fruitless deeds of darkness, but rather exposed. Have nothing to do with the fruitless deeds of darkness, but rather exposed. Some of them still haven't been told about the tinfoil hat they're wearing on their nose and mouth. Autonomy and economy, they close it down. Notice how they let us know what they won't allow. Only sometimes ignore the lies and the double think. Pay no mind to the puppet strings, cause once you've seen it, you can't unsee it. Just speaking for us heathens that love freedom. One reason my gun's clean and I read books. Take a deep look into history, they don't teach us. The evidence is being purged from libraries, so lies carry more weight, they try to hide the core strength. People living without the trivium, unaware of the gift their ancestors have given them. It's been hidden, but to get the facts, you know you gotta get your whip, hat and coat and dig like Indiana Jones. Before you can take the power back, I don't know where the power's at. Tragedy and hope. Before you can take the power back, I don't know where the power's at. Tragedy and hope. MK Ultra, something maybe we might should know about. Building 7, something maybe we might should know about. John O'Neill, something maybe we might should know about. The dancing Israelis, something maybe we might should know about. USS Liberty, something maybe we might should know about. For agreement, something maybe we might should know about. Bohemian Grove, something maybe we might should know about. British East India Company, something maybe we might should know about. Operation Mockingbird, something maybe we might should know about. Operation Paperclip, something maybe we might should know about. Ruby Ridge, something maybe we might should know about. The Opium Wars, something maybe we might should know about. Before you can take the power back, I don't know where the power's at. Tragedy and hope. Before you can take the power back, I don't know where the power's at. Tragedy and hope. Tierra Griffin, rock on. Anthony Sutton, rock on. Frederick Bastiat, rock on. Richard Grove, rock on. James Corbett, rock on. Gary Webb, rock on. John Taylor Gatto, rock on. Harry Bezmenov, rock on. Eustace Mullins, rock on. Alexander Solzhenitsyn, rock on. General Smedley Butler, rock on. Carol Quigley, rock on. Before you can take the power back, I don't know where the power's at. Tragedy and hope. Before you can take the power back, I don't know where the power's at. Tragedy and hope.
Welcome, Truth Seeker. It's not easy to discern truth from fiction on holodeck Earth. Grand Theft World is a fire hose of illumination and inspires the hearts and minds of truthers seeking freedom in a world environment of manipulation and control. Richard Grove and special guests take a deep dive into the people, places, and events that have shaped our world. Through a lens of critical thinking, to polish the gems and sort the chaff, to reveal the true machinations behind world events. Piece by piece, podcast by podcast, a portrait of reality emerges that we can use to take educated action in the fight for consciousness, truth, and freedom. Grand Theft World episodes include clips from the brightest and best podcasters and articles every week. A weekly special guest brings their expertise and knowledge. Join the vibrant GTW community of researchers and like-minded peers to collaborate on solutions and how we can truly create change. Take your first step on this adventure. Join now.
Welcome to the Grand Theft World podcast. Tonight, we are celebrating 4 years. This is our 4th anniversary. Welcome to the show. We're going to be going live now till about 4 in the morning is usually when we get done. If you're a new listener, this show is, it'll be emblematic of most of the other shows we've had to do. We're going to hit some miscellaneous stories. We'll hit the election. We'll end up with more, not frivolous, but, fringe information as we get toward the 4 a.m. mark on the old clock here. All right, so let's check out this past week in Grand Theft World news history. Russia hits Google with a fine. That's not that unusual. The amount of the fine is what's unusual. It was $2.5 decillion. It's a 2.5 decillion. It's like 2.5 trillion dollars, which is newsworthy, and you should kind of understand what's going on there. There's some censorship going on, and that is a country saying no to Google. We're going to see how that goes out. YouTube throttled the Trump Rogan interview. It's got 44 million views. Wonder what it would have had if actually people could have found it when they searched it for the first week. And that led into the next situation of the Tony Hinchcliffe garbage comment. Island of garbage he referred to not as referring to Puerto Ricans, but Puerto Rico itself, because it has a garbage management problem, and he's a ecologically minded, savvy young roast comedian, and he decided to make some comments that got taken out of context and people made a big deal. But it led into current president, I know you forgot he was still president, Joe Biden came out while Kamala was doing like her wrap-up speech. He did a live stream and called Trump supporters garbage, which then spawned the phantom apostrophe, in this garbage gate type of situation where the White House officially changed and altered a transcript to make it look like Biden didn't do that. And then the people who do the transcription came out and said, hey, that's not what he said. And there was a big splash going on that didn't need to go on that late in an election cycle. And then Trump capitalized, as he's fond of doing, and he rode around doing interviews from a garbage truck with his brand on it. Next day, Biden had a creepy Halloween party where he bit babies, but that's not unusual. And then the world awoke later in the week to the death of internet star Peanut the Squirrel, which got a lot of attention in odd ways. And, there's children being trafficked in New York State that don't get nearly as much attention as the squirrel story did. So we're going to look at, both sides of that phenomenon for a few seconds, because it's not worthy of too much time in this time capsule. There's also a plan to disqualify Donald Trump should he win the election. There's already a good plan in place by the opposing side to make sure that he can't take office. And then another strange piece that happened this week. YouTube defended conservative creators against a hit piece from the New York Times and told them to go pound sand, which is, there's some evidence of the deep state side kind of eating itself and, fighting with itself. And those could be ominous signs. It's the same reason they're probably putting the razor wire up around the White House and various places in D.C. right now, because they fear some civil unrest from what's going on. And they did just change that DOD directive in September, so posse comitatus is no longer a thing. So it's getting interesting in this political season. So without any further ado, let's kick off the show. Let's go to Luke Rudowski of wearechange.org and thebestpoliticalshirts.com, and let's get his report from earlier today, which probably does include about as much information about Peanut the Squirrel as we need in this episode.
Government officials are like, that's a nice squirrel you got. Off with its head, execution style. And that's exactly what happened here to Peanut, an injustice of the century that a lot of people are rightfully up in arms about. We'll tell you why somehow this involves the local kind of political scene, as of course the political race is heating up as Kamala Harris just appeared on Saturday Night Live, making her appeal to Pennsylvania voters that look like they will be deciding this year's presidential election. All of this as the polls are getting very close. Now, as they just flipped, highlighting how Kamala Harris has a small lead over Donald Trump in 4 swing states, with some surprising results in an Iowa poll. What's really going on here? As of course, the discourse online right now is just heavily centered around Peanut and Fred too, as a lot of people have forgotten about Fred the Squirrel that was also extrajudiciously assassinated by federal communist bureaucrats in the woke liberal hellscape of New York. As Elon Musk has been tweeting up a storm about this, rightfully so, as he says this story is, quote, actually true, worth nothing that criminals vote overwhelmingly for Democrats because they are so soft on crime. The Democratic Party is literally the party of criminals, just a statement of fact. Retweeting a man that said blue states seem to care more about euthanizing squirrels than arresting burglars and drug dealers, as of course TMZ brought us this particular story of a man who literally runs an animal rescue nonprofit who 7 years ago rescued an orphaned squirrel that was taken out by a car. No, Hillary Clinton wasn't driving that car, as the story will make you kind of think and believe here, but more importantly, the squirrel had no parents, so this man took it upon himself to raise the squirrel himself. He did it in a way where he captured a lot of the private moments between him and the squirrel on social media. The squirrel had over 1 million followers on social media, highlighting this very kind of simpatico, interesting kind of weird convergence between nature and human life that was very fascinating and beautiful to see. It brought joy to a lot of people's hearts, showing us how those squirrely, big-tailed little rat-like creatures could change their ways, just like canines have for many decades now. And centuries, learning to live in symbiosis with the fellow man that, of course, they cohabitate with and work perfectly with. Canines used to be rabid wolves, and then they learned how to work one-on-one with human beings in this beautiful complementary way that has brought us so much joy and happiness in exchange for, of course, bones and belly scratches. A relationship that we also have seen kindred between other animals like squirrels. But that type of love, that type of amazing, beautiful relationship showing us that boundaries could be broken, people could and animals could come together, put away our fear, put away our instincts in exchange for true friendship was something that the bureaucratic government in New York couldn't handle at all. As jackboot officers of the state decided to gear up in full regalia and with the biggest Orwellian boot that they could find, the biggest, baddest ramming stick that they could get, they of course loaded up, geared up, and made their way to this larger, symbolic, beautiful home that broke all the boundaries and rules of nature as 10 jackboot, wide neck, fat donut eating bureaucratic officers of the state decided to raid his home and, of course, detain him. Not even allow him to use his bathroom, not even allowing him to feed his other animal, interrogated and intimidated him and his wife, trying to, of course, allude that maybe there be some problems for them with their immigration status, as, of course, they served a search warrant with 4 different bureaucratic departments of the state that immorally, in my opinion, took the squirrel, took the raccoon, and then ended up euthanizing, taking their lives, decapitating them, and then, of course, cutting up their body parts so there couldn't even be a proper funeral. That's exactly what happened here, and if that doesn't infuriate you, I don't know what will.
We just learned that they have euthanized Peanut.
And the raccoon as well.
And the raccoon as well.
Fred! They got Fred!
I am so sorry. This must be really difficult for you.
It not only tears my family apart, but Peanut was the cornerstone of our nonprofit animal rescue. And 10 to 12 DEC officers raided my house as if I was a drug dealer. I was sat outside my house for 5 hours. I had to get a police escort to my bathroom. I wasn't even allowed to feed my rescue horses breakfast or lunch. I was sat there like a criminal. After they interrogated my wife to check out her immigration status, then proceeded to ask me if I had cameras in my house, then proceeded to go through every cabinet, nook, and cranny of my house for a squirrel and a raccoon.
They got a search warrant?
They got a search warrant. 4 departments and a judge signed off on a search warrant for a squirrel and a raccoon. And then they took them and killed them.
Why did they go through all that to get a search warrant for an animal that had been with you very safely, and the world witnessed this for 7 years? Why now suddenly did they show up with a search warrant and take these animals?
We haven't a clue. We don't know who made the complaints. Again, Peanut was an indoor squirrel, not harming anybody. He's been with us for 7 years. Not a single complaint was ever filed for this animal. We had him for 7.5 years. He became the world's most famous squirrel. We weren't hiding him by any means. He was all over TikTok. He became the first squirrel on TikTok to ever hit 1 million followers. He did every news station around the world. He's helped people. He's helped kids gather joy. And then we started a nonprofit animal rescue called Peanut's Freedom Farm to help animals like Peanut fight a good fight when they're in a neglected case or they're sitting in a slaughter auction. And he was the cornerstone of our life and our organization. We used his platform to help raise money for the 300 animals we have at our sanctuary.
You would think those bureaucrats have nothing better to do here, but of course they don't. This is how they spend their time, as New York State is also accused of literally cooking their own books in order to make it look like they have reduced crime. That is, of course, actually really affecting the local citizenry there, as district attorneys there have been hijacked by billionaires who financed them into position of powers that literally allow criminals to walk free after committing violent crimes on their local citizenry. That is okay. For, of course, the state, you sheltering a squirrel and highlighting it on social media and training it and working with it and having a loving relationship with it? No! That's where the state draws the line and, of course, tries to viciously punish you for it. As Roger Stone took to social media and announced justice for Peanut, joining the call for many, as of course the Associated Press reported on this as well, detailing the orphaned squirrel who became a social media star that was euthanized after being seized from the home, the loving home that the squirrel was previously in. Here's a picture of Peanut, just for you, just so you understand, as this is the leftist, liberal, democratic state that is truly exemplified by their large reactions here, that is treating people like this, like terrorists, as actual criminals, gets to literally walk around scot-free, especially if their immigration status allows them to have special treatment based on who they will be voting for in the future. This, as a news anchor, reported on this and also was just as shocked as you are, as his face tells it all, especially when it comes to the overreach of the bureaucratic, nanny, big brother Orwellian state that the people of New York have to live in.
We have a very disappointing and sad update now on the saga of Peanut the Squirrel.
You might have heard this little guy's been making headlines this week, and New York State officials now tell us the pet squirrel has been put down. Authorities seized Peanut from a home in Pine City, New York. It's a little south of Elmira. Apparently, there have been multiple complaints. Peanut's owner says the squirrel's mother was hit by a car, and he'd been taking care of the animal ever since. The owner runs an animal sanctuary and says he knows it's illegal to own a wild animal without a license, and says he was working to get Peanut certified as an educational animal. A raccoon taken during the same raid also put down. The State Department of Environmental Conservation says all this is done to test for rabies. All right, that's what Albany's focusing on.
Test for rabies. Yes, that's the official explanation there. And as the anchor put it, yep, that's what Albany, out of all the problems that people are facing in New York, and there's multiple ones, usually problems created by the state, they decided to, of course, test it for rabies, as nationally there's about 4 cases of rabies from squirrels in a year's period. But still, no, they had to test for rabies. And of course, the officers, the judges, and the bureaucrats, the 4 government agencies behind this, should be absolutely ashamed of themselves for this larger action. Will they ever be ashamed? I don't think so. As what happened here to Fred and to Peanut is something that, of course, should be in our minds, especially with the way that people will be voting in just a few days from now. As, of course, the memes from all of this, they're also pretty funny, as someone decided to create a fake image of Peanut the Squirrel on Twitter, saying that they had information that could lead to the arrest and imprisonment of Hillary Clinton. Melanie Mack decided to, of course, release this photo of New York State putting their knee on the neck of the squirrel, as ALX took to social media and then highlighted the director of the New York Department of Environmental Conservation that was behind the larger assassination of Peanut and Fred. And let's be real here. She looks exactly just like you thought she would. As she's also the first woman ever to serve as the director of the Division of Law Enforcement and ultimately holds the souls of Fred and Peanut, a part of our larger kind of karmic energy out there. And a lot of people are pissed off about this, as there's a lot of things that they should be pissed off about, but this definitely seems to be the major rallying call politically here, as Elon Musk just retweeted this meme showing a brain asking its human if they're sleeping. The human says trying to, and then the brain says Peanut the Squirrel was investigated more than any single Epstein client. And the person wakes up in a cold sweat. Absolutely! As the memes here are pretty epic. As this one here highlights the Democrats' kind of priority list, showing them arresting illegals, arresting people who violently assault women, arresting people for hurting other people, and then, of course, them when it comes to squirrels. As a lot of people are being radicalized by this, as some have declared now, don't thread on me with the image of Peanut. Another image here I think perfectly highlights the situation with Peanut the Squirrel saying, in reality, they're not after me. They're after you. I'm just in their way. This one's pretty good too here, showing Peanut the Squirrel in heaven, announcing that Peanut was Epstein and that they need to vote for Trump. I'm going to retweet that one too. As, again, we could laugh here, and I think we should laugh instead of cry, as the actions of the state are egregious, and something that, of course, we face now as well. As an independent media organization, there have been a lot of my friends that have been under attack, and within the last few weeks, we also have been under attack, and that's why we literally created SaveLukeNow.com, a website that, instead of begging and groveling and asking for a handout, I decided, after being dealt with a very kind of surprise, vicious blow by the state that absolutely eviscerates any kind of financial security that I have, since I got a very surprise, big, huge IRS bill that's over $180,000. Got it out of nowhere. I don't know what's going on here. I'm in touch with lawyers. I got to hire a lawyer. Lawyers are very expensive. And if you value us, and again, this threatens my existence. This threatens if I'm able to ever to freaking pay this. We're not making huge money here.
Good, pull that. All right, so save Luke now. I got to check that out. And I got to text him because, you know, in those situations, it's good to know a guy that knows people on the tax IRS board, right? So we'll share contact with Luke, and I'll make a note for that. That's the best thing I can do in that situation. On the flip side, I do have some Peanut memes because I was on Twitter for 5 minutes to post this show earlier today. So the people who want to take your guns invaded the home, murdered a squirrel and a raccoon. That's one. And then I like this one that LD posted in the chat there. Mm-hmm. Come and take it. All right. Peanut is done for tonight. We're no more Peanut. Hopefully. There's no more Peanut.
I'm sure there'll be jokes. I'm sure there'll be jokes and references and callbacks, but you know, we reserve the right. We reserve the right
on this show to do Peanut jokes. Just like my hat is an Arnold Palmer Country Club hat because he was mentioned last week, so I figured it's a good time to wear the Palmer hat, right? And that's why it's a legend hat. He's a legend because Trump told you why.
Everyone's doing some kind of self-help these days, and you can find a million self-help courses out there. Most other courses out there are hosting lectures, they're hosting videos, they're maybe even doing Q&As, and these are great starting points to encourage learning. But at Autonomy, we believe that hands-on practice is the best way to really lock in what we're learning. There's no better way to gain confidence and mastery than through action. After each lecture, we practice the concepts we've learned with other students, giving and receiving feedback in a non-judgmental environment. The result is mastery of concepts like entrepreneurship, ethical sales, and self-reliance in an environment that directly translates to the real world. Plus, you make connections with other like-minded individuals who are learning right alongside you, and you have a lifetime membership in the community. The Autonomy course with Richard Grove equips you with confidence, competence, and courage in a world filled with confusion and noise. You can learn more at getautonomy.info. We'll see you there.
What makes the Grand Theft World podcast unique, invigorating, exciting, and informative? Most other podcasts out there are either doing straight up interviews or they're just covering the daily news. They're covering current events from the day they happened. And that is effective. It's useful. It's a great starting point. And then sometimes these current events change during the week past the first story. So we like to give it a little time. You have to wait till some of the dust settles on these stories in order to give them accurate coverage. And the other thing that's really missing in the media landscape is covering the articles that are coming out every day. That's great. That's necessary. But who's bringing in contextual history so that you can understand what has been going on for decades and decades to lead up to the machinations and actions that we see unfolding today? So what we do here on the podcast is we cover current events. Many of these things are censored, but we wait about a week. As a forensic historian, I focused mainly through my career on the history of globalism and collectivism and things that they call maybe the New World Order. There's a lot of facts to these sort of circumstances, groups, events, activities, working groups that they've had over time. So for Grand Theft World listeners, we not only break down the current events, most of which that are censored during the week, we provide you with contextual history, we give you the source notes, the references, we do deep dives, and this really empowers you with an understanding of context and history so that you can make more informed decisions in your life. There's also a community, a membership where you guys can actually ask questions and we can get into the show and we can share evidence. And there's a town hall weekly for Grand Theft World for those who listen to it and are interested in covering the stories that we don't get to during a 6-hour show. Listening to it an hour a day, you could easily consume the week's news, but you're going to have substance and meaning and context and understanding. And with that, you can make higher quality decisions in your life. So if you're interested in more quality in your life, go to grandtheftworld.com, click podcast at the top, and we'll see you there. Thank you.
These allegations are false.
This isn't Grand Theft Auto, folks. This isn't a video game.
What are the most surprising things that you discovered once you started pulling on that thread? Who he was connected to, what institutions he was influential over, what events he participated in?
Come on, man. What are we talking about? Come on, man. No.
You don't have to think about it, dude.
I got this quote because you said you didn't know much about Klaus Schwab. I made it my job to, as soon as this happened, I'm like, okay, this guy's their front man. Let me learn about the official history of the World Economic Forum. I got their 40-year history. I got every book that Klaus Schwab has written or ghostwritten. I went through those books. This is one of the most interesting passages.
Come on, man. Come